This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast. I feel like I haven't talked to everybody for like months and months and months. Time seems to be on some kind of a weird loop. How do you guys feel about that? I have no sense of time. Like, it's gone.
Yeah, this timing has been wonky ever since, obviously, lockdown. I also feel like this week, not aided by the fact that we had a statutory holiday in the middle of the week. So for me, I am so thrown off. It's bizarre. Like Thursday this week felt like a Monday, and then but Wednesday was the Sunday, and Tuesday was the Friday. I mean, I feel like I don't even know what planet I'm living on.
And this is Caitlin Green that you're listening to now. Caitlin wasn't with us last week, and Adam and I were quite missing her. Adam, I know how you've got kids. I don't know what the days of the week are like for you, but I think this is a really common problem with people. They don't know what time it is. They don't know what day it is.
Literally every day I ask someone else, what day is it? Is today Wednesday? Is today Thursday? Every day I ask somebody what day it is.
You'd think how did Tom Hanks in Castaway, how did his character keep track of how many frickin' years? And I guess that's why there's literally ticks on the side of the cave that you have to scratch in or notch your knife handle, or there's got to be some way to. What did the mariners do in 1460 that were sailing it? How in the shit did they know? Sorry about that. How in the heck did they know?
Yeah.
What month it was? Like I just, it's Christmas in 176 days.
Okay, that I'm also not ready for. And it was weird because we reached the halfway mark of the year this week. And it felt like it was A, kind of cause for celebration. And then B, a lot of people also thought, well, nothing's happened. I haven't done anything this year except try to stay inside and avoid people. So it was weird. I was happy about it, frankly. I was on the happy about it side.
Well, depending on what country you're in, stuff has happened or it hasn't happened. So I think Canada's doing really well. Canada Day, we experienced that this week. It was kind of weird being in the middle of the week. I knew because it woke me up in the middle of the night. I live in this way out in the country, and someone was blasting fireworks, and my dog was freaked out. So that's the only thing that reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, Canada Day. So I realized that at like 12:05.
I think that having the stat in the middle of the week actually served to keep people a little bit more apart, because normally it would be kind of at the end of the long weekend and there might be more partying and stuff. And here in Toronto, it was a much quieter Canada Day than normal.
Was it?
Because like a lot of our fireworks shows were canceled. They usually have a giant fireworks display that happens in the east end of the city, right on the lake at a place called Ashbridges Bay, and tons of people gather for that. And that was canceled. And they did some downtown, but like you couldn't gather near them to watch, and they weren't encouraging people to do that, which is good.
Well, I want to ask you about this, which leads me into, I guess our first topic. We were talking about people gathering. There was apparently on a bar on King West. 150 odd people attended this secret party, this very clandestine party. So I'm imagining it was like, oh yeah, they're going to get together in the basement of this. So anyway, now the bar owners are facing huge fines and possibly losing their liquor license for an unknown amount of time. How do you feel about that? I think it sucks that they're doing that, and I just think it sends out such crappy messaging.
It does. It's just, it's so, like, for lack of a better word, it's just so stupid.
Yeah.
And it's so short-sighted. I mean, here in Toronto, we were only allowed to enter stage two of reopening, like less than 2 weeks ago. We just got there, and we're still dealing with outbreaks in our farming areas of Ontario because we've got so many migrant workers that are working and living there. I mean, we are just getting by. And a group of these dummies decided they were just going to pretend that we're not in the middle of a viral pandemic and have 150 people not just gathered together, likely closer to one another than 6 feet, definitely not wearing masks. But
what do you think the age group was, Caitlin?
I think it was young. It was definitely young.
Okay, let me just play the devil's advocate here. If I was that age, I'll tell you right now, Caitlin, I probably would have been one of the people in that bar. So I do want to cut some slack here. When you have a group of older people, and I don't consider you old or Adam old, but me, I'm 58.
You're
So
not old.
I am right in that area where, people are looking at me, shut up, lady, you're freaking old. Like, go do your bingo game. But all I'm saying, if I was 20, 25, my hormones would have been raging. I would have wanted to be hooking up with people. I have a government telling me that you're not really the target for this pandemic or this virus. You're probably not going to die from this. Like, I'd be going, okay, you're telling me all this stuff. I'm going to go to this party. I'm going to have a couple of beers and I'm going to possibly kiss some cute, hot human. And, I'm going to be there. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like
I think
it's a very different pandemic depending on how old you are.
I agree. And I also think people understandably are suffering from like exhaustion of having to sort of play by, these rules if they feel that they, for whatever reason, are in this low risk category. But it's not really like it's not about them individually. What if they go hug a grandparent? What if they get into an Uber and then they're asymptomatic and then the Uber driver gets it and then drives people around? Like, we know how this spreads. We know how fast it spreads. We have so many examples of super spreading. We've all heard about it in the news. And I don't think you go through there and necessarily toss everybody in jail or anything, but those owners deserve to be fined. And I have friends who own restaurants and bars in this city, and they're playing by the rules. They're doing the right thing because they don't want to be the center of a super spreading case. And they heard about this story of this stupid bar in King West, and they were furious because they said, we've been
it's
out
a
so
money
much.
grab. It's a money grab.
And everyone's been impacted by this financially, especially the hospitality industry. So for other bars on King West, where, again, like one of my friends, literally the weekend that we went into lockdown, just before March 16th, they opened a bar on King West that weekend. It was horrible timing for them. And now luckily they're in a good position financially and they can weather the storm and they have a patio so they can serve people now. But they're hearing this story going, what the hell's wrong with you? We've been closed for this long, playing by the rules for this long so that we can get to stage 3. Please don't make the government slap all of our hands over one mistake that you decided to make.
The very difficult thing about how this virus operates is that people don't feel sick until they feel sick. And I know that seems like a very sort of a roundabout way of putting it, but it's true. You feel fine. And so you're thinking, I'm not sick. This is where the trouble starts, is that people do not understand that there's a 2-week period, which is why this whole quarantine has been pounded about the 14 days. That's what scientists, physicians, the government, people dealing with the immune system, professional people are telling us that is the amount of time that is safe to say that the virus is going to make you sick or not, or that you will show symptoms, which is, so for all you people out there that are wondering what asymptomatic means, I think a lot of people are hearing these terms and they really don't understand what they are. Like, I'm always surprised, even with my friends that I consider quite intelligent, they don't really understand, well, why do we have to stay away for two weeks? Like, they're saying these things to me. I'm like, after 4 months, you're asking these kinds of questions? Yeah, I just don't get why. Well, because, if your throat starts getting sore, you probably 8 days before that were touching people, hugging grandparents, making out with a guy in a bar, and you were sick in those 8 days, but you just felt sick on the 9th day.
Yeah.
Oh, so, I guess we have to put it in terms. I remember, years ago, Calgary had huge floods here. You guys might have remembered the huge floods we had. I believe it was 2014 or 2013 or something. The Mayor Nenshi actually came on the TV and he goes, do I need to tell people not to swim in the river, not to raft down the river? The water tables were 10 feet higher than they normally were. It was so dangerous. And they were having to send people out to rescue people off of the Bow River and the Elbow River, which are the 2 rivers that go through Calgary, because they were tubing, they were on air mattresses, they were in little kiddie canoes, like going down a raging river on an inflatable swan. So I think we're dealing with that same kind of, sorry, I'm pontificating here, but with COVID, we make these assumptive, ideas that people just understand it. I don't think they do. I simply do not think they do.
And some people in society are always going to be more comfortable taking risks than others. And that's fine when it only personally impacts you. But in situations like impaired driving, in situations like, practicing unsafe sex and not concealing your sexual history to people, you're impacting other people's lives and their health and well-being. And sure, maybe you get COVID and all you do is lose your sense of smell for 2 weeks. Lucky you. That might not be the case for somebody else. And it might not just be the case for somebody else who's older or unhealthy. There are cases of perfectly healthy people, people who are far more fit than I am, who go to the gym all the time, have no pre-existing conditions. They're on ventilators. And I don't know if anyone's Googled an image of somebody on a ventilator. It's not good. And my next door neighbor is an ER doctor in one of the busiest hospitals in Vaughan. And she, even though she says we're doing a good job, our numbers are down, and your average person is really going to try to abide by the rules, it doesn't change the fact that until there's a vaccine, you just can't rule out the possibility that you could get somebody else sick. And do you want that on your conscience? I couldn't live with myself.
Well, in layman's terms, if you're at a certain age, please think back to the Clairol Herbal Essence shampoo commercial, and she told two friends, and she told two friends, and you saw the screen split and split and split. Anyway, you are listening to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm back this week with Caitlin Green and Adam Karsh. We're so happy to be here. Thanks for listening. We've got a really great show for you today, so don't go away. We'll be right back. I wish today I was sitting here with Caitlin and Adam and talking to you about butterfly collection. And slightly used scarves from Hermes, or even Jell-O, yes or no? But no, we're still talking about the idiotic nature of our lives right now. And I think we sometimes paint a little bit of a bleak picture here on the Jann Arden podcast. We don't mean to, but there's just so many stupid people.
Yeah.
That are being stupid because they're scared. So I try and cut them a little bit of slack. But here's something for you. So we just were talking about the bar that had a very secret party for 150 folks, drinking drinks, making out, whatever they were doing, dancing, Levi loving, who knows what was going on. But Air Canada and WestJet are the two main domestic carriers. As of July 1st, both announced that they were no longer keeping the middle seat vacant, which they sold a lot of plane tickets under that guise of there'll be a seat between you, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. So people who were flying to see their, mother-in-law that they hadn't seen in 4 months in Halifax suddenly realized that the plane ticket they bought for July the 10th now has somebody in that seat because they changed their policies. So let's fast forward a little bit here to a Toronto to Halifax flight. I believe it was a WestJet flight.
Yeah.
Now they're telling the passengers that were on this particular flight that they very well were exposed to COVID-19 on the flight.
Yeah.
So, and this is just in the first few days of these policies being opened up. I was furious. I was tweeting about it. I put out one of those little things that you can do on Twitter where you can ask a question and do a quick survey. I had like 6,000 people answer the survey. 93 or 94% said there's no way they feel safe flying. And that was the numbers. It was like 94-6. So thoughts, Caitlin? I think it's unfair to sell somebody at a $1,000 ticket that they thought they'd have a seat beside them, which isn't 6 feet. It's like 1 foot.
Well, yeah.
Now we're back down to just a few inches. And never mind that, if you get a big person beside you, you got no inches.
I mean, and like, first up, it's been 4 months. Unless there's an emergency, and if you fell under the umbrella category of you've had an emergency, so you have to get on a flight, that's fine. Every single other last person on that flight, why couldn't you have waited longer than 4 months to get on a damn plane?
What about people that have to work and have to do this? I mean, I am trying to figure out who these people are who are filling flights.
And what's interesting is my brother-in-law and his wife sold their place in Vancouver, and because they sold it and their plan was move to Halifax, And, you know, in the middle of the pandemic, because they're genuinely moving, he had to move with his wife and their 2-year-old kid and their brand new baby across Canada. Now, this was earlier on in the pandemic. And so they said that the flight was completely empty. The airports are empty. There was nobody on the plane. And when they get there, they have to go into extreme lockdown, quarantine for 14 days, like don't even leave the house to get gas or a cup of coffee, nothing. Yep. And it was very stressful for them, but they followed the rules. Everyone's fine. Okay. I talk about this situation with them. They can't believe it because like they got on a flight and were nervous about it, but it was empty at that time. And I just find it so strange that anybody, and I've seen the videos of flights in the US and Canada now where their flights are full. And I agree with you. I don't think it's fair that people get on board a flight and unlike a patio or a busy place, a busy public place that you could just walk out of if you felt uncomfortable, you are trapped on that plane.
Everyone uses the same bathroom. Absolutely. They don't wipe the bathroom out after every passenger. You cannot tell me that after everyone goes in peace, after every single one, you have a flight attendant that's already overworked, nervous, under a lot of stress, you know, trying to keep passengers happy. Everyone's tense, is going to go in there with a industrial strength spritzer and spray that bathroom down. It's not going to happen. Have you ever seen how people wear their masks? It's on their chin. They had a picture the other day of a guy. He was on an American flight, but I had to laugh. He was this huge guy. He had his face mask on his eyes, like for sleeping. He put them over his eyes to keep it dark. And I don't know if people think that's funny.
Yeah, I don't think they think at all. I just find it troubling too because, you know, the airlines get bailouts from the government, right? So they take these massive bailouts and then people aren't allowed to return their flights or return their fares. They don't get a refund. It's been a nightmare process. If you had a flight booked anywhere, getting any kind of refund or even a credit issued has been torture. And I just think about the fact that, you know, not even that long ago, like you're being dinged for overage of £1 on a bag, crammed into these seats. I was already the lunatic on planes who wiped down every single surface. I brought an entire pack of Purell wipes with me. Me too. That was before a pandemic. So I'm curious. I mean, I know people have to get where they're going. And so for the people in emergency situations, I feel for them. I just don't feel that at this point, you should be piling people in like sardines into a commercial flight. I feel like we need to save the seats for people who are in emergency situations, who are traveling around because they have to for work. Maybe they're in an essential industry and they need to be able to travel. I just think they should have priority and they shouldn't feel scared to get on a plane.
Well, the matter of economics come up, the fiduciary responsibility that the airlines have to their shareholders, blah, 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 blah. The thing that always irks me about these giant corporations, welcome to the rest of the world club. Yeah, we are all, my livelihood disappeared in 20 minutes. When they made this announcement, my livelihood, and you know, I'm not going to complain 1 second. I am not a wealthy person in the big stream of things. I have a mortgage like everybody else. I'm pretty sure, you know, as this goes on, I'm not going to be in a great position. I don't think I'll be working until middle of next year. If we stay on course to kind of keep our numbers down. But I don't want to walk around angry at people all the time. But, you know, the ire that I feel towards people that we deserve better as the public, as the people that pay for these tickets. We deserve better. And I feel like, you know, having that seat in between would have been such an act of kindness and of a little bit of, yeah, we actually do give a crap about you. But as soon as they went with that, I'm just like, wow.
Well, when they went through the rows of people who were going to be potentially impacted, like they said, the whole plane could have been exposed, but we're really working our way and focusing on this exact section of the plane. If you had a middle seat populating those specific rows that they were concerned about, I think they said that it's like if you had taken away the middle seat, you would have reduced exposure by 33%.
That's worth it.
Just physically because of the reduction in people on the plane. And so if that means that you have to charge slightly more for the plane tickets that you are making available, talk about that, consider that option. But overall, exposing people on your flight is not going to do a lot to instill consumer confidence and make people want to get back on planes. So I don't think it's good for business anyways.
Well, patience is everything. Patience is everything. We have an amazing guest today. I don't know if she's going to weigh in on all this flying stuff. I know that she's going to have to get on a plane eventually because she's an actor. Zoie Palmer. is an amazing Canadian actress. She's Canadian and English, actually. Oh, no, Irish. She'd kill me if I said English. And she's going to be with us today. You may know Zoe from Dr. Lauren from Lost Girl. She played Android on Dark Matter. She's been in countless movies and television shows. Anyway, she's also plays my sister on The Jann Show. Coming up right after this, you are going to be meeting Zoie Palmer, and we're going to have a great conversation about acting. So don't go away. We'll be right back. This is the Jann Arden Podcast. Very special guest with us today. I've torn her away from her multitasking duties from her home in Toronto. She is presently somewhere. It's very private. It's unknown, but it's not a bathroom. And Zoie Palmer is with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Zoie. Thanks for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
You are the very first Jann Show cast member to come on and just chat with us. But I don't need to remind people, but I will, of your 5 seasons with Lost Girl, which is like a phenomenon all over the damn planet. Just the cons that you do, those Comic Cons. The show's been finished for 4 years, and you guys are still zooming around the planet doing those.
Yeah. I think it's longer than 4 years now. We wrapped in 2014.
No!
October of 2014. October 1st, around 4:00 in the morning, 2014.
What? So that experience was 5 years. So you actually got to go shoot the show and go home every night.
Yeah, we shot Toronto where I live. So I was, that was a show that was local in that way for me. Yeah.
So for an actor, that is a pretty magnificent 4 or 5 years to be able to, go home and then go to work and not be some, like, I know that you've been in, God knows, you were in Budapest last year or the year before.
Yeah. I think the end of 2017, I ended up in Budapest there for a bit. Yeah.
You can't go home after Budapest.
Not at the end of the day. No. You are allowed to go home at some point. Like, they don't kidnap you in Budapest. You do fly home at the end of the shoot, but every night you go to your apartment. I did do a shoot in Lithuania. My very first thing I ever booked right out of theater school was in Lithuania. And I didn't know anything about set or the lingo on set. And it was really trial by fire. Like, I was just in another country where I didn't speak the language, learning how to be on set. It was kind of incredible.
You have been acting half of your life.
Yeah, I have now. I know, God Lord, yeah.
And it's actually probably more than half of your life if you kind of clock the time when you got the acting bug, which was really, really early.
Yeah, I mean, I've been acting since I was a kid. Like, I did everything I could as a child. I did community theater and I did plays in school and I did anything I could get my hands on. I don't come from a acting background or even an artistic family, really. So I didn't have a clue how to start in the industry, which is why I went to theater school. Like, I had no idea. I had no connections. I didn't know, my dad was in the military. My sister has degrees in business and information sciences. I come from that stuff. So, it was just something I got into as a little kid. I saw it and thought I'd like to do it. Yeah.
It takes an incredible amount of dedication. I don't think people really understand what goes on a show to make the show. Like something like Lost Girl, you mentioned, your last scene, getting home, finishing up at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize really what you do give up. I know you gain a lot in the arts and you gain a lot by being an actor, but you sacrifice a lot too. I would imagine that it's doing these characters. I don't know how you guys leave that behind you at the end of every day of shooting. Like, when you've been asked to cry for 14 hours one day, I really don't know how you leave that aside.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I think it's acting is a career that's a lifestyle career. You know what I mean? It's not a job; it's a lifestyle. You're sort of, if you were a police officer, it's a lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's not just a job. in terms of leaving the character behind at the end of every day, that depends on the character of the day and the mood you're in that day. It's sort of, some days it's easy. Some days I'll come home and I can't sleep for a few hours because you're just, you're so amped up shooting all day. And then by the time you get home, you need a minute to come off of that. Like it sometimes takes longer than the drive home to kind of come down from the day you've had, especially if you've had fights, choreography, or anything really intense emotionally that day. It does take a little bit of time to kind of land back into your own life and come home and do laundry. It's a bit jarring at times, that transition, but you do. I mean, you've been in this industry
almost 2 weeks.
Well, no, but I mean, even
I've been acting over 7 hours now, if you put it all together.
But yours is the same. It's a lifestyle, right? As a musician and touring, it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's not 9 to 5. It's you're with it 24 hours a day in some way, whether it's thinking about it or creating music or whatever it is. It's a full.
But actors are a particular kind of person. I find all of you guys very eccentric. Like I find most actors very eccentric. Like there is an absolute through line with every actor that I have met, all these amazing actors that I've met, certainly through the Jann show, but just other events over the last few years, the Canadian Screen Awards or whatever, people I've long admired. You meet them and there's this thread that goes through you guys. That's, it is kind of nutty, and you're very eccentric is the word that I have to use, Zoie.
Well, you can't be, you have to be a little bit out there to choose to for a living. It's not a job everybody thinks that to do for a living. It's an odd way to make a living. Like it is a bit weird. And so, I think you have to think outside the box a little bit in order to even imagine creating your life in this way.
Oh, for sure. You spent, let's just round it off to like a decade. I'm going to say between Dark Matter and Lost Girl, and some change, put the prep in there and all that other stuff. So those characters could not have been more different. Like Lost Girl was this kind of high strung, often in doubt doctor that was dealing with this world that was absolutely insane. Any of you Lost Girl fans out there know that, Lauren had, her hands full with some really, really nutty situations. And you always seem to be, your character was always kind of the anchor to keep one foot in the real world. And then in Android, you're playing a machine. Yeah. And I swear to God, if I had not known you, I would never even have recognized you from Lost Girl to Android. Like I wouldn't even have looked at you and going, oh, that's the girl from Lost Girl. Like, of course I knew you. So you absolutely morphed into a completely physically different individual.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun of it. That's what I love about it. Anytime you get to do that, and characters that are extreme in any way or quirky in any way, or that's the journey and the joy. Like that's what it's about for me. And I think if you ask most actors, I mean, it's so exciting to figure it out because you are figuring it out, right? That's the process of acting is the interesting part. The product is kind of none of your business. Almost like you do the thing and you give it over and hopefully people are into it. But the journey of finding that character is the part that's exciting.
I am often like really taken aback by the amount of time that actors spend in a makeup chair. So I'd imagine something like the Android would have been a much different experience than Dr. Lauren or your character of Max on the Jann show. They're all so different in their prep. Do you enjoy that process? Is that part of it that's like, I'm in the makeup chair, yay?
I think I respect and appreciate the process. I have such respect for hair and makeup department and costume because without them, it informs the character so much. But the sitting in a chair for 2.5 hours, I'm sure I have some form of mild ADHD or perhaps not mild, but aggressive. I don't know. So I struggle a lot sitting there for 2-3 hours. That's not an enjoyable experience for me, but it's not because it's in hair and makeup. I would have a hard time sitting anywhere for 3 straight hours.
Right.
I'm not inclined to sit. So Some people love it, but I respect it immensely.
There's a lot of sitting around in acting.
Yeah.
I know there's always stuff to do. When we come back, boy, that went by really quickly. When we come back, I want to tell you how I kind of stumbled onto Zoie Palmer and sort of the very short version of how she ended up being on the Jann show. And we're all very, very lucky. So don't go away. We're talking to the actor extraordinaire Zoie Palmer from her home in Toronto, Ontario. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast. I don't know what you're doing today, but I bet you're having your day so much better because you're listening to Zoie Palmer talk about acting, talk about her life. Very long story, very short. Zoie plays Max on the Jann show, and we're so thrilled. So I've never had a sister in real life. So for me, it's been a really, really interesting unfolding. Zoie actually has a real sister.
I do.
And as she mentioned before, she's the antithesis to you, really.
We're different in the way that we've moved through the world. We have some very similar traits in terms of, she's a dedicated, committed kind of, she goes after what she wants, and she did it in her way, and I did it in my way. But there's some stuff in there that's similar. But yes, the outcome of our life, so to speak, is quite different.
Well, I was in my basement on a bike or something one day, and a movie came on called Sex After Kids. And I probably started watching it 20 minutes in, but I had thinking, I got to ride this bike for 45 minutes. I started watching it. I laughed my butt off. It's Jeremy Lalonde is a Canadian film. Anyways, he writes great movies. Zoie played a very funny English character, and she's a single mom. Anyway, I laughed my butt off. And I just thought, who is this person? So of course I go to Twitter, and she was on Twitter, and I was so thrilled. Yeah. And the rest, as they say, is history. I'm like, I love the show. I loved you in this movie. And the Jann show hadn't even really started its thing down the road, but I could not get you out of my mind for the part of Max when we started to develop that character. Yeah. Like, it never went away. And I just thought that she's got to be Max.
Yeah.
And you bring so much to it, Zoie.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny because we've told this story, but people bring up things in the business all the time. Like, I have a show idea. You'd be great for this, or whatever it is. There's so much of that in the business.
Is there?
Yeah, and it's authentic and genuine. Nobody's saying it, but you hear it a lot. I have a part in mind for you, or I have so whenever I hear it after 20 odd years in the business, I go, cool, and then never think about it again.
Right.
So you brought that up, going, we're going to do a show, the Jann show. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And you were like, yeah, you'd be great for the sister. And I was like, totally awesome. Talk to her. And, so the fact that it happened.
Sure, dreamer, dream on, dreamweaver.
I thought for sure you'll do the Jann show at some point, whatever, and someone will be the sister and maybe it'll be me and all those things. But, you don't really sit and think about it and really imagine that happening.
So fast forward 3 years later.
And here we are.
I'm like, can you come? But the part that you play, you and your husband, Dave, your two kids, you have an 18-year-old from a previous relationship when you were a very young woman.
Yeah, very, 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 very young.
Oh, very. You were just, I think 16 maybe. No, I think you were like 18, 19. That's sort of how we're playing it. You look too young to have kids anyway. Oh. But I digress. So, but you play this part that is so pivotal to everything because you have comedic chops, and I know that people don't think of you as a comedic actor. Obviously, Jeremy Lalonde did, but even in Lost Girl and even in Dark Matter, you have impeccable comedic timing. You're very, very funny, and you're funny in real life, but you play these drama roles.
I've always bumped on the term comedic actor and dramatic actor. I think, it comes up all the time. It's very standard language. And I often wonder about it because I think like actors, the hope anyway, as an actor for myself is that you can kind of come in and out of different parts of people. And sometimes they're, even the most, of course, there are people you meet in the world, and some people are funny and you notice it, and some people are serious and you notice it, or you notice things about people. But I think, like, I don't know that there is there's, it's the age old, no comedy without drama. There's no drama without comedy. They're very connected.
But I mean, but they do say though, Zoe, that, some dramatic actors don't do comedy well. And that, I mean, that sort of is across the board, but you have this nuanced stuff that you do. Like, you're one of those people every take, and I'm new to all this, but when I'm sitting sort of in the one of those director's chairs and I'm watching you do take after take of things, I love watching people with experience is interesting, such as yourself, because you do something different every single time. And everyone's so excited to go, how is she going to say this line this time? What's going to happen this time? And oh my God, it's so hard not to die laughing when you've got to be quiet on a set and you do something and you're just so damn funny. Wow. But you're playing a straight person in the show. Mm-hmm. So the laughs come at a very weird expense to you because you are funny, but you're the anchor of keeping, no, everybody do this.
I kind of love that. I love when comedy is born out of a truthful moment, right? And I mean, for me, that's the stuff that's the most funny. I mean, I love sort of broad stuff as well, but I really connect to, a lot of the British comedies where it's just almost in the awkward, uncomfortable pain that we find.
It's right.
Funny things. And for me, because I really am, comedy and tragedy are so married, and that it is those moments that we don't want to laugh because we shouldn't, but it is funny. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
I love that.
How when you went in like to the Max character, you get a script, you get these Jann scripts, and you're like, okay, we're going to go into season 1, and I don't know who this person is. Can you walk us through a little bit or is it just too mysterious? Is there some basics that you base that character on, or like where's the starting point, Zoe?
Well, I mean, the time you haven't got, I find often, certainly on TV shows, because they shoot so fast, you're often finding who they are in real time almost. You know, you don't have the kind of prep at times that you might have on a different show or a movie, say, where months in advance that you're shooting something, and then you have the script for those months to kind of really look at it. But when you're getting on a show, even if you get the first script, when you're shooting, you're getting the scripts while you're shooting, as you know. So you're learning lines for the next episode while you're shooting. So the time is difficult. So oftentimes it's about the dynamics on set, right? Like, I can have an idea of how I want to play the character, but when I get onto set with you, or Elena or Patrick, I have to be present in the scene and respond to what they're giving me too. So you have to have a concept. You have to have an idea. You can't go in, well, I suppose you could. I don't. I mean, you have to
Max is just so definite. Max is so definite. Like, people have really enjoyed watching the Jann character and the Max character. I get so many notes about, I mean, they love the whole show, but they love the interaction of sisters. And because I don't have a sister, it's been very gratifying for me to have people say, oh my gosh, that's so much like my sister, and you guys just nail it. And like, I've learned so much from you in the last couple of years, as to like even learning lines. And but it's such it really is a marvel to watch people create something out of nothing. Maybe that's what I want to say.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like, you get given it, like, the acting portion is in a process of it all, right? I mean, there's an idea that someone comes up with, you guys and Jenica and Leah, and who come up with an idea for a show. And then, we're a part of the piece of that telling.
But it comes to life when you have an actor like yourself that brings, they're like, we were all like, oh my God, there's Max, there she is, or there's Kale, there's Todd. Yeah. It is a freaky, weird process to watch it unfold.
It's really exciting, and I love the evolution of like where we all were in the beginning of season 1 and where we all are in season 2, and not just as the characters in the story, but how we as the actors, I've watched everybody kind of find their way into these people and find the dynamics and find the places to kind of add and pull back, and
for sure,
we've discovered that together, and it's a really exciting thing for me. I love that stuff. I love the process of it.
I would be remiss to fans of your other shows to not ask you about the absolute difficulty of shooting love scenes. So in, whether it's Lost Girl, I know that you even had stuff in Dark Matter. You know, when Android went off into the other world or the dream sequence, I still haven't decided. I'm so mad about season 4, but anyway, we won't deal with that on Dark Matter right now. Yeah. So kind of just we don't even think about it when we're watching people being intimate, but there is nothing sexy about it there, right? Like, I've asked you this before because I'm so curious about love scenes in movies and TV.
I think the standard answer is oftentimes there's so many people in the room and it's all technical, and that is the answer. There's a lot of truth to that.
I can't imagine. I mean, I just can't imagine. It makes my head want to pop off.
I really look at those scenes the same way I look at every other scene. Like, I don't think of it as like we're shooting. Now there's a sex scene. It's not how you know what I mean? Like, it feels to me, it's a part of the thing, and I don't get weird about it. I don't get uncomfortable about it. The parameters often on set are really solid and how it's going to be shot. You often have really long conversations about, there's choreography
with the other actor, right?
So you would the other actor and the director and sometimes the writers of how they imagined this scene and that kind of thing. I don't get too precious about it. I kind of go into it the same way I go into any other scene. And I think, and sometimes it is kind of, there is a connect. You have to, when you and I are having a scene about our mother being diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
I had to ask the question because people always want to know that. And I can't imagine anything more complicated. And see how this show has gone by? I had like 19 other questions to ask you. And now here's where we're leaving it. So I'm going to let you have the last 30 seconds just to say, hey, Zoie, you're on a hit show with Jann, and we're so happy to have you. I can't even tell you.
It's my pleasure, all of it. The show, being here today on this podcast, I'm thrilled to pieces, and I adore you, as you know. So thank you.
Well, I mean, just the ideas that you come up with. I mean, we're so glad to have a show where people feel like they can, just have ideas and like, oh, let me try this. But anyway, tune in to the Jann show. It's coming this fall. And we'll have more details, but Zoie Palmer is going to be with us. Wait till you see what she brings to the table season 2. It is so damn funny. And once again, we're forcing her to be musical. She's musical in a lot of her series. People make her sing, and for good reason. I wanted to get into talking about all the music that we've done together so far, but we'll talk about that next time. I hope you'll come back to the podcast.
I would love to, absolutely.
Okay. You've been listening to the Jann Arden podcast. My guest, Zoie Palmer. We'll see you next time. Toodly-dee.